But one thing that we can't predict is the origin of our own story. It is our truth to share.
G'day guys, Ride here, your coffee coach. I'm joined with Tuan Huynh from Chicago's Vietfive. He's created this fantastic cafe that serves Vietnamese coffee that his family actually roasted. It's entirely Robusta species coffee, and I'm super excited to have you here, Tuan. I'd love to start by hearing your story from your family, how your family got into coffee in Vietnam, and then how you've sort of brought that to the US in Chicago.
I have to say that our coffee story began in 1975 after the fall of Saigon. It was my family on my mother's side. They were relocated to relocation camps after the fall of Saigon, out of the city into the central highlands of Vietnam. Their homes were confiscated, and they were displaced to the central highlands where Bumatuk is right now in the Dak Lak province. But because of French colonization, they left the coffee bean. The coffee, and as you know, the origins of coffee coming to Vietnam was brought by a priest. But Robusta became a higher yield of species. So it's natural farmers and growers. They, begin to harvest, grow and harvest this crop. First for dietary, reasons, as like a supplement to tea, but later became where it surrounds my grandmother's house. But they've had this plot of land for a while because they built it. That's what relocation is, that you built your own place and into a new, area, a rural area. And so I didn't come in contact with the coffee. Well, first, let me backtrack just a little bit. My family and I, we escaped Vietnam in 1981. So that's 6 years later. I was born in 1978. My dad was incarcerated by the communist government for 5.5 years, up to 1981, in re-education camps. And he was fortunate to be let out on a kind of like a home pass. And he was the last of my entire family to be released, to be let out gradually because of his high-ranking status in the South Vietnamese Army, along with being a American employed soldier in a sense. So he was able to devise an escape plan in the summer of 1981, and there was 55 people on board on a boat 45 by 15. And there were, under the age of 16, there were 33 of us, and I was the youngest on that boat. We spent about 5 days at sea prior to coming to Malaysia. And there we stayed at the refugee camp for about 5.5 months prior to seeking asylum to the US because of my dad's military record with the US. But I was 3 years old then. I didn't go back to Vietnam until 2019.
Right. Wow.
I came back I came and visit for the first time since I was 3 years old to visit Vietnam. And that's when I experienced our coffee for the first time.
Yeah.
And, because in America, Vietnamese coffee, you experience like Café du Monde mostly, right? And that's not Vietnamese coffee.
Right.
And I realized that, people who drink Vietnamese coffee, they relate it to condensed milk more than the coffee itself. Right?
Yeah.
It's like a style coffee or
that's right.
A style coffee. But when I went over there and seen my uncles, the way they literally would make it and how we drank it, and I was just kind of like, where does this coffee come from? They say it's actually ours. What do you mean ours? It's like, it's on our land. We've been growing it. And some plants are, 20 years old, plus. And they just been on our property for a while. And I was like, so we have a lot of it, It's like, yeah. Later on that year, as soon as I got back, I went there in June, July, and I started importing September.
Right.
I started importing immediately, and testing it out. I started testing it out and just trying and looking for roasters, but not like I wanted to go into canning at first. Just go direct to canning. I figured it'd be easier way people get going, but it didn't work out for me. But then so 2021, I started Vietfive. I started Vietfive once came with a good ratio formula, flavor profile that I want. Partnered with an amazing roaster here in Chicago to roast the coffee the way I wanted it. Come up with a formula, and that's identifiable to how I remember it, but also how my mom would make it, and how traditional to the flavor, the nuttiness, the fruitiness, and the chocolatey flavor profile, but still keep its authenticity, quality, but also compatible to American palate. Like, how do you make it where it's not as bitter, too chicory, but keep its authenticity, and say when people drink it, they know it's Vietnamese coffee.
Yeah.
It's not just a style. You're drinking the beans grown and harvested in Vietnam. And I just realized Americans haven't drank Vietnamese coffee. They drink a style of Vietnamese coffee. They drink more of the condensed milk than they have tried the bean.
Yeah.
Like, not Vietnamese coffee, because I noticed that when people say it's Colombian coffee, they right away equate to it's from Colombia.
Yes.
It's Ethiopian coffee. They give it its origin story. But for us, for the Vietnamese people, when you say Vietnamese coffee, you almost negate the fact that it's the origins is from Vietnam.
Yeah, and especially with Vietnam being such a huge producer of coffee.
We are the number one. We're the number one in Robusta production in the entire world.
Yeah.
We're the number two
number two in the entire
world.
Yeah, it's huge.
When you think about Vietnamese coffee, you think about condensed milk.
You think about the style rather than the actual beans itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I know that Robusta has definitely got a bad rap, but it's also because lack of investments and resources to local farmers like my family.
Yeah.
How do I help reverse that? By reinvesting in machinery, how we farm, how we grow it. We don't use fertilizer, because or toxic, chemicals in the plants. We find ways to maintain the plants, and just planted 300 new plants in Vietnam. And we're excited about that. And now every time I harvest, we harvest around 2.5 times a year. And each time we harvest, or when I place an order for my family to do it, we're able to hire folks, villagers, to come and sort the beans and stuff like that. But I know I don't have, we do a natural process with our coffee. We let the berries dry with the beans intact prior to peeling it each one. But now I need to, I'm investing in a machine, to be able to speed that process up. Just finding a good. Right now we got some used equipment, but hopefully I get some newer ones where we can pick up production, and where we don't have less defects in the coffee. But I know that by the time you get to a cup of Vietfive coffee in Chicago, it's delicious. So it's no longer considered a defective species of coffee. Now it's a defectively delicious cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And that's my tag, Vietfive, defectively delicious. Because I really want to spin that on his head. Because I'm like, there's so many barriers that we have to overcome as, not only just as a offshoot in specialty coffee, you don't even consider it a specialty coffee because the grading scale doesn't fit us, for us anyway. But yet when you try it, when you cup it, when you make it an espresso, when you make it through a fin traditionally, it's still a great cup of coffee that's low acidity, that's yummy and it's nutty and it's chocolatey and it's just as good. and it's packed with twice the amount of caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I think it's amazing. And at the time, probably couldn't be better for Robusta to really flourish, because now we're seeing a 20-year correction in coffee prices. So, when I started making coffee in Sydney here in 2000, I remember serving coffees for about $3, $3.50 was around the price of a small cup of Australian coffee, Australian dollars. And now we're charging $4.50, and even that's at the more expensive end. So only gone up $1 in 22 years. But what I'm seeing now happening in the industry is that prices obviously is going up and up and up. Everything is getting more expensive. What we've actually started, we used to only use 100% Arabica coffee, but because of the prices of Arabica just going through the roof, we're now looking to Robusta to maybe pad out the blends to try and keep the price down for some customers that aren't willing to accept the increase in price. And so, I think Robusta, because now we understand so much more about coffee, we can actually say Robusta can taste fantastic. It's just that we didn't really understand it. We didn't really appreciate it perhaps in the past. We were just about volume. Now we understand, if you're hand picking it, you're picking out those Quakers, you're hand picking out any of the bugs, the insect damaged ones, any of the cracked cherries, all of those things that we now understand affect flavour negatively. You can sort them out and still produce. Yes, it's going to be more bitter because it has double the amount of caffeine, but it's still going to have the sweetness. It's still going to have, and the process, like you said, you're doing a natural process, that would definitely increase the body and the sweetness there for you in your coffees. So you can really start to appreciate coffee rather than just the caffeine hit. You can appreciate it as a luxury drink. So I think, it's fantastic that you're driving that. And I think the world will now start to fully come into that appreciation of, we've been spoilt for the last 100 years getting cheap coffee. Now we have to accept we need to pay for it because you can't sustain it. The future is unsustainable. And we want families like yours to thrive, and they should be. If they've had years and years of experience of growing coffee, they should be rewarded for that experience. So
Absolutely. But the step to get even into the conversation is hard, or even getting into the room, because I almost feel at first when I first started doing this, the playing field is kind of like an elitist language, right?
Yeah.
That you, what they call coffee snobs or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I'm new to coffee, or just that you don't understand, right? So I do my homework, and it's just trying to figure out how to properly communicate the quality of our coffee without being too invasive. Or I know I had offended somebody before because I'm so kind of passionate about how what's the differentiation between Vietnamese coffee and just Vietnamese coffee style, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I had offended one person. It still lingers in my head because I feel so bad about that. Because that's not my intent. My intent is just want to celebrate our story. I just want to share our story and our journey and how special it is, because I believe the coffee in itself has a special story around the world. Vietnam is a mini country that grows Robusta, right? But so many, like Puerto Rico. Like I went to the specialty coffee place, and there was Puerto Rican coffee farmers. They farm, but they farm mostly Arabica. And then I asked them, do they grow Robusta too? And they said, yeah, we do, but most of them we throw it away. And I'm like, wow, why not? Because no one drinks it. Yeah. Right? No one drinks it. And I'm just thinking about the poor farmers that has these plants on their land. It's devalued because of the narrative. Yeah. Right? You don't even, there's so many barriers for someone to get it into a cup for you to try it. And then it's less subjective. It's less subjective because the consumer, the person, finally gets to drink it. Then you find its origin, and then there's a story behind it. But because of this whole narrative and this almost like a system that is in place, that my family would never be able to meet their expectations. They will never be able to meet their grading scale system. They don't understand what even cupping is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they don't even understand what we can make it through a fin. You know, we've done historically through a fin. But if you take our coffee and you roast it with time and temperature, when it's done right, and you put it into whatever coffee maker you want to do, from French press to a pour over to a freaking curing machine, it's going to be a quality cup of coffee, you know. But you don't get that chance because of this whole barrier that is placed in front of it. And I think once I got into the industry and figuring this out, I'm like, the only way I can do it is get this coffee, complete it, and present it to people, you know? So I've done pop-ups around the country. I travel. I literally put it in a suitcase, my fins and everything. I went to California, I went to Kansas, I went everywhere to just here. We do Vietnamese coffee, you know, and even you have to convince Vietnamese people that this is Vietnamese coffee because they're so accustomed to drinking a more flavored mixed coffee that's not Robusta or, you know, coffee from Vietnam. You know, except if you're in Vietnam. Even in Vietnam, because you have to meet the popular palate of folks that come from America and things like that. The specialty of our coffee is sometimes overlooked too, you know. And for me, why I'm just like why I'm passionate when I'm talking about it, is just like because I have a family that grows this coffee. You know? I have a family that grows this coffee, and I work and I pay a boatload to import it. You know, and I try to price it, my cup, still within a decent range where I don't price it. So I have to figure out a way that's still profitable, but still making sure that I can take care of everyone at the same time, presenting to the world this gift that's unknown to them.
So I can feel your passion coming through, and that's, I think, where people like myself can jump on board with that, because you understand the passion that you have, and I want to experience some of that passion. You know, like I want to go, okay, how can I get some of that passion into my coffee? And I think people overlook the fact that every coffee has a story behind it. We're so used to just drinking it and getting on with our daily, you know, chores, and we, you know, get the buzz from it, so that's helpful for getting up in the morning. But it's almost the last, you know, when I'm making coffee for myself in the morning, it's like my last bit of mindfulness that I have, that's not a device, that's not on a screen, that's not, you know, consuming my just brain. It's just a time to just focus on this pure extraction and then enjoy it, drink it. So I think people around the world, especially with, you know, the way that COVID's affected mental health, when you have these stories and you can then follow that story from farm right through to end product, and you can drink this and go, I can now imagine this coffee has traveled throughout history all the way through to this cup right here for me right now, you know, over the 20 years of the farm being around and the growing those trees and the amounts of crops that you've harvested from them. And, you know, I get to be a part of that whole journey. I think that's where coffee is going next.
The thing is that it's not a lucrative marketing approach.
No, yeah.
It's time consuming. So the way how I counter that is that I build community around what we're doing. You know, I open up the space to build a community around what we're doing. And then they now are my storytellers. Now they are our storytellers of our brand, of our coffee, and they have to do it well, right? We have to do it well every single day. We don't have an espresso machine in the shop. We only have fins lined up every day because we want to be calculated, and we want to take the time to make it precisely to gram and ounces of cup. You know, once people consume it, they know it's from plant to sip. You know, and then there's a story in between. Now, Is that something I can put onto an advertising, an ad, a post that will drive people to it? No, probably not. Probably not. Right. But the invitation is that now you become a part of this journey. Right.
Yeah.
Our repeated customers are phenomenal. Our online, is people are supporting, people believe in it. Now, should I grow at a pace if I was mass marketing this thing? Seeking more wholesales, which I am, right? But I want to seek the right partners. They'll put care to our coffee, right? To put care to our coffee, and it's not just a $10.99 box of coffee that just lives on the shelf. I want to be able to make sure that when people purchase it, they know the story origin that goes with it. They know that what it costs to put in this coffee.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that cup of coffee is good. It's worth your time, and the money that you put in, because I know everyone this time, because of COVID, because of the economy, everything, everyone values their dollar.
Yes.
So I want to put the value of even that into each cup. Each cup. It's not just a Starbucks grab and go.
No, that's right. It's not just
yeah. They know that it's a human behind making this coffee, just like Starbucks and stuff. But the time and process we put into this $5 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And it's worth their time and money, and they leave with a story to share.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that the cafe was doing Fin coffee only. I think it's fantastic, because that is an experience. Like, you can get espresso coffee everywhere, but how many places can you walk into and get a Fin coffee made from a farm that is owned by the owner? Like, it's just the experience there. I think it's a good time to give a shout out to Vietfive Cafe. It's at 1116 West Madison St in Chicago. So all of you viewers who are watching this, go check out Tuan and experience that coffee and that journey. And the online store, what's the online store's URL?
At Vietfive.com. Yeah, go to www.vietfive.com. Our Instagram is @Vietfive.
Do you have Fin every morning? Is that your preferred style of coffee? Like, what's your coffee morning routine when you wake up?
Yeah, ever since I drank our coffee and made this coffee, I haven't been able to drink any other coffee.
Really?
Yeah, I wake up and I make my signature drink, I almost call it the founder's drink, because that's what I made up. I make it with our Robusta medium roast through a fin, fine grind. It takes about 6 to 10 minutes with the larger fin. And I add oat milk and agave. I don't use sugar in our drink. We use sweetness as an organic drink. Gives us a nice balance. And that's my go-to every day, and I do it hot in the morning and ice all day long.
Nice, yeah. I love a good iced coffee. Is just hot days. There's nothing better for me.
It's crazy, the ice drink, because even during the winter time, our ice drinks are still our best sellers.
Really? That's great. Do you prepare it differently when you're doing your ice drinks? Do you just pour it over ice, or do you actually brew it?
I chill it. I brew it and I chill it for ice drinks, because you don't want it to dilute the flavor once you put it into ice. So I chill it, extract it, and then I pre-batch it to for a larger container to a 12 and 16 ounce, and soon we'll do 20 ounces because people want in a bigger cup. Yeah. So we're going to be moving to 20 ounces soon here. I also, besides coffee, I make my materials in Vietnam too. So my fins, both my small and larger family-sized fins, are made in Vietnam, and my cups are sourced in Vietnam as well. And then all my bags that are inside is sourced in Vietnam. All my liners and stuff. So there's many things that I could source in Vietnam to be able to provide some income there for a vendor or something. Is what I'm looking to do. And the same thing over here locally, with my merch, with my my packaging. I source with local vendors, and to now they also it can become like an ecosystem of just, with commerce, right? With what we're doing to Vietnamese coffee,
Yeah.
So as we grow, our vendors grow, our bakery with Sweet Delights Chicago, with a local restaurant that makes our meats for our banh mi and panadas. We source locally with our products to keep it that way and continue to. That's part of building community too. Is through commerce, right? We keep the community. There's no there's no strangers in who we deal business with. Pretty much. Great. Yeah, it's pretty much friends we haven't met yet.
Yeah.
So that's how we've been able to build our community. In the space, the cafe itself, all my furniture is movable. So we transform the space into community-centered. Right. We just did a book signing with the chairman of the Jordan brand.
I saw that. That looked fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a creative workshop mentorship night with True Chicago. We host a couple other small little events there at the shop. We did a networking night for community organizers. I did a community organizing during the day where the shop is happening, so they can see it, and they bring in community organizers to kind of see what we're doing out in the space. From employment to just exposure and access, we want to be able to do that. And I love that we're doing it through the medium of Vietnamese coffee, because now you're really looking at it in a holistic way, and the possibilities and the acceptance of a culture that you may become so foreign. But yeah, we've been in the States since 1975. A lot of Vietnamese left by refuge or because of the conflict. But we've been in the States for 40 plus years now, and there's still a lack of understanding. We don't just do your nails or your toes, we're more than that, Yeah. We have some of the best culinary foods, but we also are the largest producers of coffee in the entire world. Yeah, and isn't that like amazing that such a small country can just have such a huge impact when you're competing with the next, let's tell the viewers that the next biggest producer of coffee is Brazil, which is as big as the United States in itself. So we're talking about a massive country producing the most, and yeah, they probably do about double, but Vietnam is the second biggest producer of coffee and the biggest producer of Robusta. When you're competing against the likes of Brazil, it's amazing that Australia is as big as Brazil, or a little bit smaller, but we don't produce coffee at all. We do very small amounts, but we're not known for coffee. We're known for wines, but we could easily be growing coffees in the top half of Australia, and we just haven't taken that anywhere near the levels of the other countries around the world. So yeah, I just, kudos to you and bringing that story through to the United States to really educate Westerners how coffee can be. Because I think that's the thing. We've had this idea, I think, in the Western world, which is why I didn't like coffee, because I had this idea of international, instant coffee. International Roast is one of our brands here, and it's very, very low quality coffee. They're not interested in the taste. It's just the talk of coffee being caffeine and caffeine being coffee all in one, when we now understand that the caffeine component is a tiny portion of everything that's in coffee. So yeah, I just love that. So what do you think the future of coffee will entail? How do you see it going forward? And in terms of the education piece, in terms of Vietnam's position, in Chicago, the coffee scene in Chicago and the States, what are your predictions there? Do you think people will accept the higher prices? And I think there are chains, right, that drive the narrative a lot. So, but because there are these giants, it always breeds the little people as well. Yeah. That wants to have their own voice in it. There's a lot, even in Vietnamese coffee brands. I know that my friend Sarah Nguyen with Nguyen Coffee Supply, she in Brooklyn, and she's been a great guidance for me too, because she is almost the face of Vietnamese coffee in the United States.
All right.
And she's been doing it now. She's went into canning, but I see how she's able to maintain the flow and trajectory. And speaking about Vietnamese coffee, I think I do it a little different because because I'm so close to the bean itself. I'm not sourcing it, or this is my family,
Yeah.
So it gets me in my own lane. But I love it when other Vietnamese people are creating their own paths and sharing the story, and then creating that wave. So now I can rise, right?
Yeah.
So that's a line that she taught me. Right? But I really appreciate like her example in that, and that's what I want to do. I think because of these Starbucks and these other big companies that are already doing it and mass producing it, have the monetary ability to purchase land and easily do that. For a local farmer like my family, it took us a long time to just to get half an acre.
Yeah.
And then it took, right now, the plants that are planted a year and a half ago is just barely growing over my uncle's head. He's only like 5 feet, right? So the plants get pretty big. And so now I just planted an additional 300 plants. And now that one's going to be another 2 years before it gives birth to, coffee that's consumable. And so I just think about the next wave in like coffee is as us little guys getting into the narrative, and I see Robusta having their own lane, who are starting to recognize we're not just a species that have a higher yield. So somehow, because we are higher yield and pest repellent, and just that we are lower graded, I think the more folks to get a chance to try it. I believe we're in the front waves of Robusta coffee in the U.S. Particularly Vietnamese coffee, which is sad. It took us all these years to get recognized. And I know there's like Copper Cow and there's other Vietnamese brands that are doing their thing, and I love it. I love seeing that because the more the merrier, right? I don't feel like I'm competing against other Vietnamese coffee brands, nor do I want to, because we all have our own unique story to share, and we're just doing ours. We're doing us. But I think in the next 10 years, you can see people appreciating the story behind the product and what its ability to do. Price is always going to be something that is fluctuated by the market, but us as we are able to do it, we can control our own in hyper local pockets and areas. And even if we are doing into markets, growing into Whole Foods or a big Kroger's, a big supermarket where we are on the shelf, I think our price range should be somewhere in the middle that stays competitive with the larger brands that could lower their prices, right? Because they do a mass volume.
Yes.
And I think for us still having that stake in it, but I know Brazil just got hit with some weather with their coffee production. It's like half of their coffee production.
Yeah, they're down a lot. Yeah, 3 million bags of coffee, their shortfall. Yeah,
so that's going to raise up the prices again, right? So I think with the market and everything and the shipping, with the supply chain issues and all this kind of stuff, all that stuff is unpredictable. But one thing that we can't predict is the origin of our own story. It is our truth to share, and it is our narrative to express, and it is our mission and our purpose to be here. And that's only like for me, like I focus on that. And every day when we open up our doors at 8 a.m. and that's our mission, that's our purpose. The next person that comes through there, our doorbell doesn't stop from 8 to 2 p.m. And I love that. And I think we're doing something great there. And we do want to partner with folks, and we are thinking about the market. I have to think about the market because my price for shipping just went up like 50%, 60%.
Yeah.
Then I have to narrow it down to how I still charge for a cup of coffee that the consumer still feel like it's worth it, because that doesn't matter to the consumer.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand as well that the smaller guys like us, you and I, where we don't have huge margins. Like I don't know about yourself, but I'm working under 10% like margins. So that's very little room for error. And on the one hand, coffee prices are going up here, but the consumer expectations remain here. And we've got to go, no, you've got to come up to this so that it's sustainable. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to enjoy it anymore. It's not like we're going out there and buying ourselves a brand new Lamborghini every day just because we're making so much money. It's not like that. We're doing it because we're passionate about it. We do rely on Starbucks and in Nestle and those people to get the mass consumption and push that narrative. But people need to understand that you're talking with massive corporations that are designed to profit. So they are doing everything in their will to make sure that they maintain their profit margins. Whereas the little guys, we are more, for me, and I see from yourself, it's more about that passion of the story. And so if you have to reduce your margins to get the word further, then that's what we do, because we're not here to just profiteer. We're here to share that story and the experience with everyone around the world. And that's why I love talking with you. And we're gonna get some of your merch, and we're gonna give it away to some of our listeners. And we'll have some upcoming competitions. We'll get that, and we'll see if we can get some of the coffee over here. I don't know how easy it is for you to export into Australia, but we can either look at doing an export, or we can just purchase it from your online store in the US. But yeah, I would really love to support you in that and really push your message out there, because I think, it's fascinating that we have this conversation about Brazil and Ethiopia and all the African coffees and the Central American coffees. And, everyone knows Colombian coffee, Brazilian coffee. But Vietnam really gets overlooked a lot, and yet it's such a huge presence and responsible for, rewarding so many people around the world. We need to appreciate it more.
Our coffee story almost reflects our American journey. Are bold and strong and full of resiliency, enough to escape a war-torn country, to come into this country, this foreign land, and learn the language and the educational system and the workforce, and we become to have a foothold in this country. But yet at times we don't have a place in this society when you think about any prominence in value. When we talk about our coffee, our food, our arts, our fashion, our music, there's still a place that Vietnamese people have made an impression in American culture, in society, but yet there's not a lot of prominence that's being placed. So our coffee is almost in the same way. We are the #1 producer of Robusta coffee in the world. It's not a status that you can easily claim, right? But we are. The fact that we are, but yet you can still relate our coffee to just condensed milk.
Yeah.
And I think that's really it's a reflection of how Vietnamese people in general, but we are making our own statement, and we're passive people in a lot of sense. We're very formal and gentle group of people, humble, but yet we are resilient.
Yeah.
We are survivors, and we're hard workers. We come with values and tradition, yet we still embrace a culture at large that is foreign to us, and become, a citizen in a country that both embrace yet reject in the same sense, but yet we still call it home, And now we here, we're making our own blueprint, our own footsteps and creating a foundation in America and making a statement out of it, So not being too intrusive, but just being part of the fabric of what this country is hard work, resiliency, and the freedom that we sought so long ago on that boat, is coming to fruition in this country when we get to create our own businesses, when we get to have a voice, when we get to share our story, openly and freely and bring in folks in the community that is welcoming to that. I think that's the hope so long ago when my dad, you know, risked our entire family to at sea, not knowing where we go except the compass and the night stars, you know. And I think that's coming to fruition to what we're doing today.
He would be proud of you, I'm sure he is. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, Tuan. For those of you in Chicago or nearby, just get down to 1116 West Madison Street in Chicago to Vietfive. Thank you so much, Tuan. This has been a great experience, and I'm sure we'll be talking more with you soon and getting some of your merch and some of your coffee over here, and we'll be continuing the promotion of your beautiful story and the coffee that goes along with it. So thank you so much for joining us.
And we're looking out for location too. We're looking at property for a roaster to roast our own coffee. So
beautiful.
2023 will look a little different for Vietfive too.
Stay tuned. Wonderful. Thanks. Oh, that was a fantastic interview with Tuan Huynh. And if you want to learn more, you can jump onto the website vietfive.com and check out their range of coffees, or go visit them if you live in Chicago area. And if you want to look at more, check out, we're going to be dropping a blog with more information on the website coffeebeansdelivered.com.au, and maybe in the future we can also get some of his coffee and start selling it through the website as well. But in the meantime, check out our socials and make sure you please give us a like, give us a subscribe, and always enjoy your brew.